What is up? Welcome to Etsy Jam. Dalia from the Handmade Mastermind joins us again to talk about the key points of her 500K strategy. This is a strategy and 2 key habits that Dalia followed over the last 8 years to go from 0 to 500K in revenue for her online shop. She also shares a special announcement with us about a new project and group that she's launching. Stick around for another great Etsy Jam. What is up? Welcome to Etsy Jam, the show where we have sponsorific conversations about serious topics. I am Gordon from Marmalade.
I am Richie from Marmalade, and wow, I don't even know what that word meant right there, Gordon. You kind of threw me. But one thing I need to know about is Marmalade, right? So Marmalade gets your products found with real shopper keywords. And what we use is machine learning to take the guesswork out of getting found on Etsy. If you have an Etsy shop that you are serious about, you need to check yourself out some Marmalade. Now you can find out more at marmalade.com. And just in case you're wondering how to spell that, it is marmalade.com.
Perfect. And we have a very special guest with us today. We have Dalia from the Handmade Mastermind. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dalia.
Thanks for having me. I'm back again.
Absolutely, yeah. So we've had you on, I think the last time was episode 89, and then before that was episode 25. So
yeah. Didn't we talk about last time how I'll be back sooner than later, hopefully, and now here I am.
Boom.
Much sooner than later.
The magical three-peat.
Right? But we actually did. So the first time we talked about having you back soon, and then it was like 60 episodes later, and now it's like 1 or 2 episodes later. So this is fantastic.
And you're going to be talking with us today about your 500K strategy, which is pretty exciting stuff. And then another exciting thing, you have an announcement to share with everybody too. So let's launch into it. Let's talk about your 500K strategy. And when we say 500K strategy, what does that mean?
So my 500K strategy is fairly simple. I want to chat to you guys about how I'm able to pretty much make over $500,000 in revenue this year, this calendar year. And so I didn't start last year, right? So this has been a few years coming. And I'm very excited about hitting this amount. I initially had that goal in the beginning of the year, and then I realized that's a lot of freaking work. And I'm like, maybe I don't have to hit it, because the prior year in 2017, I hit, I think it was 423 or 410 or something like that. And I said, I don't really need to hit 500K. It sounds like a cool number. But as the year was passing by, just recently, I think a couple months ago, me and my husband realized I'm trending to actually pass $500,000. So I'm like, hooray. And I know that there were strategies I implemented within this past year. And of course, prior years that helped me get to this. I really want to share it with your listeners because it's not by accident. I worked on strategies that I knew would help me grow, and it was very planned, if that makes sense. The exciting news, you mentioned is that today's October 29th, launches the Mastermind Strategy, which is a coaching program I have. It's 2 parts. One is the Mastering Your Goals course, and the second part is the coaching group, the Facebook group. And we can talk more about that later, but I'm just excited about breaking it down, the strategies that led me to this point. I honestly have never even imagined getting to $500,000.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, congratulations. That's quite the milestone to hit.
Yeah, I just never imagined it. Like, my first goal was to just cover daycare expense because I was pregnant with my second child. And I was like, I'll cover $600 a month. That, yada,
which is still a pretty good goal.
I agree.
Absolutely.
And that's great. Everybody has different goals. But I know this sounds ridiculous, but I was just like, when I made last year 412 or 423,000 last year, I would just thought, what's my next goal? I just thought 500,000 seemed like a really good number. It's $500,000. It's even. Does that make sense? So that's the only reason why I chose that number. And like I said, shortly after, I was like, I don't need to do that much. And essentially, it's a lot of money, because I'm very high profit business. I was like, I don't need to make that much if it's going to change my lifestyle. But lo and behold, I just was trending that way. So
yeah, that's fantastic.
A point I want to talk about real quick on the strategy, right? Like, a strategy is a little bit different than tips, right? Tips can be taken kind of like ones and twosies, but a lot of times people look at a system or a strategy and they're like, oh, I'll do that part and that part and that part because they're kind of the easy parts. But what I like about what you're talking, the strategy, is like, no, this is the system. Like, you follow the system. You want to take that part out because it doesn't seem like it fits. Well, the whole thing is probably not going to fit okay.
100% agree with you. And here's the thing, right? I was thinking about it before we started this podcast, I was like, a lot of people, not a lot of people, for lack of a better phrase, a lot of people, they want to make, let's just say 50K this year, right? Because they used to make 30, they want to make 50. Great. The issue is sometimes to get there, there's going to be a few different avenues and you may have some option, but sometimes you don't have too many options. So depending on your market, depending on a few other things, if I tell you, you need to be carrying this product line on Etsy because it makes sense for you to venture out there because your current, small niche one is not going to bring you what you want, Sometimes they might be like, yeah, but I don't feel like offering personalized items for my type of product. Okay, well, I don't feel like giving you 50 grand a year. It doesn't work that way. And so sometimes you might have options. So I might sometimes when I do coaching sessions or whatever, I might give people their personalized goal strategy and say, you have to do this, this, and this. However, if you're willing to wait several years to make this goal, then maybe you could do this and this only until you're more comfortable. Or sometimes, tomorrow I make $1 million, but doing what I do currently is not going to make me $1 million. And sometimes we have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's a saying, right? I think I've heard of that.
It is now.
Because the things that you've been doing, have made you what you're making today. And so more than likely, for example, in the mastermind strategy group that I'm creating, you'll be getting strategies that you're not really used to or that are more turned up in volume than you're currently doing. And that's what's going to get you to where you want to go.
I agree. There's a lot of things always, right, that need to be changed. Like what you have now is a result of what you've been doing. And sometimes you might be like, well, I'm slammed right now. There's nothing, like I don't have room to do anything else. And it's like, well, just like we say to work on your lowest performing listings, like, well, what are the things that you're doing right now that are the lowest performing, right?
Yeah.
Stop doing those things and replace them with something that's more valuable.
I agree. I always think about, I only work on high value stuff. Like I always say that to my group, and it's simple. Like I never work on, for the most part, I never work on restocking supplies. I never work on printing my marketing inserts. I never work on the stuff that anybody else could do. I work on the stuff that makes me money, that I really can get other people to do, so my designs at the moment, my designs and certain other things like that are high value stuff. If I have to get like some virtual assistant stuff done, I'll give it to my assistant, and if I do need to clean up my office or restock supplies, either my husband does it or I might do it after work, like I don't do it during work hours. I need to focus on the things that make me money, things that I don't do, or if it's still important to my business, I get somebody else to do. If people don't have assistants, which is I'm assuming most people don't, or somebody that they hire, get somebody in your household to do it. Like get your kids, I don't know, something. I just feel like, how much time it takes me to restock my supplies? It takes me a hot minute, and I'd rather be working on something else. That time I spent restocking supplies and shipping supplies and everything, I could have worked on the listings I said I was going to work on instead of complaining that I don't have time. My thought process is very different. I'm always about, I'm working on high value stuff all the time.
That's a really good point. Make sure that you're doing the things that only you can do. And if someone else can do something, let someone else do it, even if they do it slightly different. And if you really, really, really don't have anybody else that can do it, then, I'd say just no one does those things then, because you're never going to be in the position to have somebody else if you're just busy working on the low value things.
Yeah. And like I said, do it after work. Like if you really have nobody else during work hours, you do the high value stuff after work when you're like hanging around your house. Yeah, most people, I would assume, work in their house, fill up the supplies while you're, doing this and that, like, feeding the kids, whatever. So it doesn't feel like it's work. That's what I've been doing. And it's super helpful because I'm running this, company at over $500,000 and I only have 2 people working, me and my assistant. I think that's pretty freaking awesome. So can I get to my strategies? I would love to share some points with your listeners to really help them understand how I got there and help them understand that they could take what I'm saying and apply it to their own business. So I'll just get started. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Please
do. Get right into it. That's what they came for, right? So first and foremost, before I get into like the nitty gritty strategies, I do want to say something that has helped me get to where I am, even with strategies in place, even with the right strategies in place. There's some things I've always been doing that I know has helped me. Goal planning is one of them. And that's why my mastermind strategy program starts with a goal planning course, because you have to know what to focus on. You have to know the right things to focus on. I see a lot of people always focusing on certain things. I'm like, that doesn't even matter. I was like, why are you on Twitter? Nobody, for your business, nobody cares about Twitter. Believe me, guys, you won't even imagine it. I deal with a lot of people, and some people are on Twitter. I'm like, what are you doing? Or even if they're on another social media platform, but not doing it right, or not even really doing it, I'm like, you just wasted 30 minutes of your day, you know?
Yeah.
So working on the right things and only focusing on the right things. So goal planning is a big deal, but even to break it down further, daily planning. I don't know if everybody's like this. I feel like it will help a lot of people, but I do my daily planning on my Trello account. Trello is like a task management type of app. It's for free, and I do my weekly planning there. And this is me, because I'm a stationary person, so I always have paper and pens lying around, but I do a daily to-do list. So everything on my day for that, on my Trello account, I literally handwrite it in front of me. It's on like this little checklist pad where you have like the check boxes and whatever. So seeing it physically, I'm sure people have heard these productivity hacks before, and I'm sure they've heard this before, I hope, that seeing it physically and checking it off and all that stuff really does help. I break my to-do list up into things that I'm excited about doing and things that are really boring as hell. And so my day, seriously, I literally have that notepad. It says awesome things and then boring things. I break my day up into, depending on my mood that day. So if I feel like, the boring things are really quick, I could get those done, get them off my list before I reward myself with the awesome things that I'm really excited about doing. I might mix up my strategy day to day, but that's what I generally do. Get those things checked off. So anyway, daily planning strategy is really important. Lastly, before I go into my real strategies here, motivation is a real thing. Okay, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of times we get burnt out. We get upset that we didn't make enough sales that day. We get upset that we saw somebody copying our designs. It really affects our moods. And I find on those days, back in the day, because now I have it under control, I used to find that I'm not productive. I know people listening have the same things. I talk to a lot of members who have the same thing. They're just like scurrying around doing nonsense because they've had a bad day, or maybe something personal happened, or whatever. I find that if I have a motivational plan, I'll explain what that is in a second, it helps me. And it's almost like a toolbox of things that help keep me motivated and moving. And so a lot of things that I do are listening to music, listening to not particularly podcasts, because those require me to actually pay attention to. So I don't listen to audiobooks during work, but things that keep me moving. A lot of people listen to music or listen to their favorite show in the background to make them laugh while they're working. Things that keep me going and make work not feel like work. So I have like a toolbox of things that I use to keep me motivated. My coffee in the morning, I'm telling you, it works. Like I need it to get going. When I get my basic things done for the day, I listen to my music. I have a music playlist that gets me pumping, or listen to some YouTube videos that don't require me to actually really listen to or pay attention, just like, fun things, stuff like that, celebrity gossip, things like that. And that's it. It keeps me highly productive. And so I recommend to people figure out over time what makes you happy that you could do during work while you're working, what keeps you motivated, what keeps you moving. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It does. Yeah. Because, a lot of times these things that are high value, things you should be doing, are a lot like, planting a seed, right? You have the great soil and you plant a seed and you water it, and we live in an instant gratification world where I did it right. It's sitting in there in the pot. Why is it not growing that flower I'm waiting for, right? Like, and you're just waiting. And then a sprout pops up and you keep taking care of it. And it's a lot. It's a long time until like you actually see the thing you're waiting for. And so you could be doing all the things you're supposed to be doing, and they're working, but they're working beneath the surface, like an iceberg or like a plant. Right?
I agree with you.
System. It's opening, it's doing all these things, and you've got to stay motivated during that time. Otherwise, you're going to stop watering the plant. You're going to think it didn't work, but you're this close.
Yeah. And this is why, guys, somebody asked me several months ago, I don't think it was a member. Who was it? Was it a family member? I don't know who it was. I vaguely remember they asked me, why do I share my revenue amounts with my group? I do it every year at the end of the year. And it's not to show off. I really don't need people on my back with, how much you make, I'm going to copy you, because people have copied me. But it's mostly to motivate people, to show people that if I'm able to do it, they certainly can. Obviously with the right strategies and staying focused. But I hope people use this podcast or other things like, people's successes and say, you know what, I can't do it by tomorrow, But if she could do it, I absolutely can as well. Because, I mean, I think I'm smart, right? But I mean, where I started was no different from a lot of people. You know, my upbringing is no different from a lot of people. And so I hope that when I share these types of results with people, that they are motivated and that keeps them moving. Like, you know what, Dalia could do it, I can too. That's what I essentially think. When I see people, back in the day when I saw somebody doing Etsy and I saw their shops with sales, I'm like, wait a minute, if people could sell art, so could I. Like, why can't I? I've always had that mindset. You know, I never thought that people were better than me. That doesn't exist. It's ridiculous, you know? So I hope that motivates people. Like you said, like people need motivation to continue moving, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You need somewhat of a balance. Like you need to be smart enough to follow directions, but you don't need to be brilliant. And you need to have the perseverance to just follow them through. Because you can be the smartest person in the world, come up with a system that seems like it should be amazing, right? And it probably would. But if you don't have the patience and the perseverance to actually put it to use, it just goes up on the shelf. I mean, how many great inventions could just be on the shelf because no one saw them through?
I agree. You know, and just I'm about to start telling you about my strategies, but the reason why I'm loving this group that I'm launching today is because there's a lot of things going on with it that's really going to help people. But another one is holding people accountable. I'm keeping them focused on task. And that's a lot of times what people need. They need that boss, right? Because we're all on bosses now, to help them stay on task, stay motivated, keep their eyes on the prize. And that's why, another reason why, you know, this mastermind strategy group, this program is going to help a lot of people keep them motivated, you know? But anyway, let me start chatting to you guys about what these strategies are. So first is knowing my priorities. Priorities is a real thing. It's not about I have to do all these to get to 50K or however, how much you want to make. It's about what needs to come first and what's more worth your time. You know, if I'm looking to make some big increases in the year, then it's important to prioritize correctly because some things will give you a higher return than others. And some things need to be implemented before others to make sure it snowballs, you know? And so one thing I'm doing with the Mastering Your Goals course, which is part of the Mastermind Strategy program, is when people start to get their goals together, they come to me and I personally approve them and help them prioritize them because I can't explain it. I can't explain how my head works, but if you tell me what market you're in and a few of your goals, like financial goals, etc., I could tell you easily what to do first, what to do second, and blah, blah, blah. Like it just makes sense to me. And so I knew, every year is different what my goals are and my strategies, but I knew what things need to be worked on first, second, or simultaneously at the same time, et cetera, what time of the year, et cetera. So that's important because it's all about return on investment. You know, if I'm working on a strategy like getting a whole bunch of new listings up on Etsy, right? Because holiday season is coming. That to me is probably more important than maybe starting my website. Okay, I'm just going to call it out right now because that's going to give me faster results than, you know, depending on a website traffic coming in, you know, because that might take a while. So priorities is a very big deal. Knowing what to do is a big deal, but knowing when to do it, in what order, based on return on investment is super important. Just like what we said before, motivation. You know, I want to see the things that give me the biggest return come first because certainly, I would assume most people don't tell me that, hey, Dalia, I'd rather make 20K this year than 40K this year. I'm assuming you want to, you know, you might. Some people are like, no, I have no interest in growing that far. But the point is some people don't want to hold back. And doing the things that give you the biggest return on investment is really important. And my vision to understand what those are is my gift. I don't know. I know how to prioritize, you know. And I help people with that in the Mastermind Strategy program. So that's number one, knowing my priorities in order to do them. Number two is I sell on multiple high traffic platforms. So I sell on Etsy, I sell on Amazon, I sell on my own website, but I've created traffic plans for my website, but legitimate traffic plans. So like you said, I don't just say, I have a website and I'm going to, you know, do Pinterest, I'm going to do this, but not really see them through and not really work on them, not just implement the seed and not watch it grow and water it. I know things take time. I started my website a few years ago. I should probably know these dates, right? And
that's okay.
I'm grateful, but I just don't think about the exact money I made. Anyway, so I started several years ago and I knew that, you know, traffic just doesn't come. And so Google SEO has to be the first thing that's implemented. So I always had an email list building and, you know, Pinterest. So continuing to work on them to snowball them was really important. Mm-hmm. And now depending on the month. Sometimes my website makes more than Etsy does, which is, I love Etsy, it's great. And it does really well for me, but I love seeing my website also grow with it. So working on multiple high traffic platforms is what got me to where I am. If people don't have such a huge goal, maybe they're not ready to diversify yet. You have to master where, not fully master, but for lack of a better phrase, master where you are now before you start going everywhere. It's relatively easy for me because I had I had a person working with me to help me get to those platforms and on my website much faster. Yeah,
it makes sense. I mean, it definitely makes sense that you want to take the time to make sure you understand one platform and you're doing it well before you branch out into other ones, so you don't end up in like a bunch of spaces and you're doing them all half well.
Exactly. And like I said, that's why when I came up with traffic plans for my website, I knew I had to implement and fully get it done. And again, when I'm implementing Google SEO, guys, you might know there's no reward immediately. Like Google SEO is there's a lot more factors in the algorithm. And I had to accept okay, I'm going to implement it. It takes time to snowball. Don't mentally rely on it as something that's going to give me instant gratification. But I knew, because I'm an SEO person, I knew my heart, if it's done properly over time, with other factors doing it properly, that it was going to give me results. And it does. I mean, I get a lot of, traffic from Google now in sales, but yeah, not just implementing it and leaving it like Pinterest and other things, And when I first started my email list, it wasn't a big deal around the handmade community. It was many years ago. Nobody talked about it for the handmade community. And I just started it. And I knew if big box competitors could do it, I know they make money from their email list, I knew I could. And that's the same thing I told you before. I knew if somebody could do it, why can't I? I know I could figure it out. So I stuck with it, and now my email list is awesome. So that's that. Now, number 3 is, this is totally related to you guys, is get to the top of search and know the importance of it. So SEO, okay? This is literally the main strategy of how I got sales, okay? In general, across all my platforms when I first started on Etsy, everywhere. Because SEO is relatively a passive strategy. When you implement it, you could be sleeping and people are searching for you and finding you. And so I always understood the importance of it. I don't know why, I just did. I understood that when people found me and purchased from me, that I didn't have to, I think social media is great, but I didn't have to manually start posting every day to social media to get people to come to my shop, right? Yeah. If I kept my SEO optimized and all that stuff, then I would get traffic and I would lead to sales and yada, yada. And so SEO obviously is the biggest moneymaker for me in all my platforms, on Etsy, on Amazon, on .com. Well, not .com, but on all those third-party platforms. And I knew, when I say know the importance of it, it's because I run into a lot of members who are like, yeah, SEO, I got it. I heard it's important. Let me work on it, right? But I find, and it's not for everybody, but I find sometime when I follow up with them, that they only applied it to a few listings. I'm like, why? They're like, oh, this came up, right? I'm like, you don't know the importance of it. If you knew the importance, you would implement. You would ask the right questions, you would work on it, and not push it to the side and say, well, I don't have time. I'm like, okay, do you have time to check into Facebook groups? Stop that and start working on your SEO. Even if that means, I know this is ridiculous, but it works. 5 listings a day. By the time you finish complaining after 30 days, you probably could have got your whole store done, right?
Yes.
No, I'm serious, because guys, and even me, sometimes I'm like, I don't know, I have time to do it. I said, Dalia, chill out. Just do 1 a day. And that seems so minuscule, but it really does add up. I learned that, guys, over time when I implement a new strategy. I barely have time, okay? But people always ask me, how do you have time to do it all? It's because these little things, right? And of course, there's more secrets to that. But one of them is just start it and don't worry about having to do it all at once, okay? Implement it slowly, because it's all the time you have. And sometimes I do find times on the weekends, things like that, when I'm trying to grow my business. But for most part, don't worry about the time you don't have. Focus on the time you do. Stop worrying about the things that doesn't matter and use it to fix your SEO, work on SEO. Know how important it is and not half-ass it. Excuse me, can I curse on this podcast? Okay. Okay, now it's going to come out. No,
yeah, we're totally not family friendly.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. We all have families.
I just have to sit on this point because it is my biggest traffic source. And I am an SEO ninja. I love, it's just what I do. I can do it in my sleep. And so knowing the importance of it and getting with it and understanding it. Don't be frustrated with it. Know that when you first start your SEO journey, because you said you're not with it, that it's going to be frustrating and it's okay. Like I said, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Did you think that you want to, make an extra 30K this year, not, implement things you don't know? Of course, you have to implement things that you're not used to doing, because if you are, then you're not probably going to get far. Certainly trends will help you grow a little bit, because, the trend of your market might have grown a little bit naturally if you did nothing, but that's not going to it's not a great strategy to rely on the market just bringing you up in sales,
Right. Yeah. The market grows 3% a year. So I'll just sit back and let that happen. And also something, that you're pointing out, but I want to make sure to stress as well, is that you're not going to be perfect right off. Like when you're first starting any of these things, if it's new to you, if you're first starting to learn SEO, you're not going to even, trying to learn from someone like you that knows what they're doing and is way ahead. You can't just pass all that on and like, oh yeah, just give me an hour. We'll have some coffee and I'll teach you everything I've learned over the past 5 years or so, right? Like it doesn't work that way. You're going to start slow. You're going to be uncomfortable, and that's good. That means you're growing. But you're not, that's something people get frustrated with all the time. They're like, I'm having trouble making my listing perfect. And it's like, well, you're learning, right? You're not going to be perfect.
And let me help you. Yeah. But don't get frustrated. Don't be impatient. This is your journey. This is your path. I mean, the only issue with me sharing results like this and, my successes, I don't want people to take it and start being impatient, right? Because they have not seen, unless they listen to the Old Marmalade podcast. I think at that point, that first podcast I was on, I think I made like 100 or 200,000. I forgot. It's in that podcast, but they didn't see the many years before. They didn't see that. But I've always been, not always been, but I've always understood patience. Like, of course, it just made sense. Like, of course, I'm not going to implement something that's going to shoot to, like, it doesn't, some strategies, it does give you quick results, but otherwise, it doesn't make sense for me to implement something, expect to look at Dalia and say, well, I need to be as successful, or make as much money as her when I'm currently making only 50,000. Like in what world do you think that's going to happen? No celebrity tweeted about you. Like, that's not going to happen, Mm-hmm. So being realistic and being patient is a really great piece of advice for everyone. Learning how to be patient. You're not going to be patient after you listen to this, but learning how to be, understanding how you can make yourself more patient is important. Just to piggyback on that really quick, I do run into people who need to make a certain amount because of personal reasons, right? They need to pay off something, in their lives. They need to make the mortgage, and the important things, and I completely understand. But usually my advice to them, if they're really like desperate, right? I'm like, go get a job, right? While you're working on your shop part-time, because sometimes the stress of needing to make a certain amount is not going to help your patients and working on strategies to make it done properly. But anyway, I had to just mention that because, like I said, I deal with a lot of sellers. I know usually what their struggles are, All right, so SEO, awesome stuff. Know it, love it, sleep with it. No, I'm kidding. It's really important. So the next thing is, again, all these are really important. So I keep saying it's important, but it really is. This is no fluff stuff. The next thing is product line research. It's important. This might sound really tough to your listeners, but it's important for you to understand that, when I first started, I made stuff. It was cutesy. I sold. I didn't understand what I was putting out. I knew I liked paper. I knew I liked design, and just kind of worked with that. Over time, I started to understand that I'm serving a market, and I started to understand my target market better and what they want and all this stuff. And sometimes you could make things that you like that might work for your market, but that's not how it works. That's not how business usually works, okay? Product line research and understanding what you need to put out to serve your target market's needs, and that's high in demand, is super important. So I'm going to say this, and hopefully I don't sound mean. Stop making stuff that people don't want. Don't tell me you're making XYZ, but you want to make 50,000. I'm like, okay, I could get you to 50,000 if you're making that, but your strategy is going to be much more involved. You're going to have to do, Pinterest, you have to do Instagram, you have to do all these things. But if you had a higher demand type of market, you won't have to do as much work. Stop making things that people don't want if your expectations are really high. If it's not, and you're like a social media maven, then yeah, I mean, maybe I can help you get there, right? But it all differs. So I personally use you guys. I mean, I use Marmalade to research product lines, product line demand. I love that your new feature, the forecasting over time, freaking amazing. I use that to see, okay, if I'm researching, let's just say I sell personalized phone cases, certain types, right? Certain design types. I want to see not only if it's in demand now, which you can see engagement, things like that to help you decide, but how does it work over time? Because if at the moment I research it, it doesn't look so hot, but if the majority of the year is fantastic, it's a consideration. I write that down. However, I also look at it and say, okay, maybe throughout the year it's not so hot, but there are some months where it's super huge, which is like holiday stuff, seasonal stuff, right? Is it huge enough for me to get into? That's why I determine,
Yeah.
I use a lot of other strategies for product line research using Marmalade, but those are just the basics. But I can't stress this enough, creating products, not just the product line types, but the design types, researching it, understanding what your target market wants. I can make phone cases all day long. If I don't want to put cutesy stuff on it for like the crowd that's actually buying phone cases, then it's not going to work. No matter how awesome your photos are, people are not buying it. And you're going to wonder why people are buying other people's stuff and why am I making sales,
Yeah, and that's a tough one too. I think for lots of artists, they get so passionate about the things that they're making and really invested in those things. And it's hard sometimes to force yourself to step away from something like that, something that you love to do, and find something that the market demands more so. That's definitely a challenge. And there's definitely a point where we want to find a balance there, because you don't want to be finding things that are strictly based on the market and you're making, iPhone cases. If you really if it just kills your joy every day to be making iPhone cases because they sell well. But at the same time, you can't go fully the other direction and make, your craft that you're so deeply passionate about if nobody is interested in buying that specific thing.
And if you want to make X amount a year, if you tell me I just want to make $500 a year, then we could talk, right? But it depends on their goals too. And so I might say, fine, you don't have to get to the phone case market if you're like in that gifty type of market, but you're telling me that you don't want to do wholesale either. You don't want to do that. It just depends. And so I'm like, these are your options. You pick. And I'm not saying that like the know all be all, but I have a lot of experience and I can help people understand what their path is depending on what market they're in, and really how much they want to make, because I might not give you such a hard strategies to implement if you don't want to increase that much from year to year. And some people, believe it or not, don't. They really they're happy with their current workload and just want to make sure that they're not standing still. And so they want to implement, simple strategies that can snowball over time. Cool, I feel like I could say for certain, because I don't remember prior to this, but my last 3 product lines that I've released, so I released product lines in chunks throughout the year, are a huge hit. They are selling like crazy at the moment. They're my most popular sellers. Why is that? Because I've done the research. Now more than ever, as time passes by, I understand my market. I understand my target market. Why do they buy this? If I'm making a new stationery set, I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's just a thing. What need does this solve for this person? Why are they buying this design over potentially something else? What is it? And sometimes it's hard for people to articulate what that may be. Yeah. With experience and over time, they have to get it. They have to understand what it is. Yeah. So product line, a huge deal. I literally go to Marmalade every single time. This is not an advertisement for you guys. Obviously, I'm on the podcast, but I literally use it every single time for product line research. And when I expand to new product types, completely new product types, to know if it's worth my time. Remember I told you about return on investment and priorities? Like, it has to be something worth my time. And of course, high profit is what I love. And if it's not, even if it's a paper product, I'm like, no, not today. Not today. I'm looking for a higher value item at the moment, I'm looking to grow substantially instead of smaller amounts, Okay, so the next one is something that people know. They sometimes put it on the back burner because they've been selling, they've been doing okay, is photos, right? We hear that all the time, every single day of our lives, photos, photos, photos. The issue I find is that people they know that to improve their photos. I feel like that they know that sometimes, but they don't know how, right? They don't know, they can't get the lighting right. So I know how to work on my lighting, but I don't know how. I don't understand how to make this or whatever on the photo, right? Because we're not all photographers. The things I've done over time, well, eventually I've hired a photographer to do it for me because I got so busy. But I know how to take really great photos myself, because what I did was I educated myself. I went to the right places to educate myself. And so YouTube is full of a lot of great tutorials, right? But I find that most people won't give the time to look through these videos that take, 30 minutes or whatever to go through it. Guys, I spend a lot of my time when I'm not working educating myself. I listen to audio, I listen to podcasts, I watch videos. I recently bought a course. I mentioned on my vlog to help me with my design program to, propel me even more. Usually when you buy a course, it gets you to what you want faster as opposed to researching on your own on YouTube, etc. You have to do the due diligence of knowing, okay, if you can't get your lighting right, you need to work on how to get it right. And that may take long, right? But sometimes I do work after hours listening to YouTube videos and trying to figure out certain methods to help me get better. And so I not just work on great photos, the first photo, right, to get the clicks. I work on the additional photos that come with it. Additional photos of the product, great. Depending on what type of product you have, it's probably really important. But I think about things like in the personalized market, because I'm in a personalized market. I think about, do you have a photo for every variation you offer? So I offer variations for color, font color, and envelope colors. I have a color chart that shows you my offerings, right? You won't believe the amount of people that actually don't have one. And I'm like, well, I understand that, red is red and light blue is light blue, but let's have a color chart or your font selections. Don't make the customer work hard and say, oh, I have these fonts available. No, show it to them, so then when they have a drop-down menu, they could choose and see. Or if you have a material type, any variation type, you should really have a photo that goes with it, whether it be a chart type of photo or showing the actual product in that variation. Because if you have a variation for like wood color types, if you only have 3 wood color types, show them the final product, like the 3 different wood color finishes, as opposed to a little snippet. That's not gonna, it's only 3, to show them a full photo. And so working on my photos is something I still currently do, believe it or not. I find that when I see what customers struggle with, that doesn't lead to a purchase, meaning what they convo me about, I always put it in the back burner. I put it on my little Trello list of shit that has to get done. And I revisit it and go, okay, people keep messaging me about this. I talk to my assistant and go, we have this brainstorming thing. And how do I get people to stop messaging me about this? Not because I mind the messages, message me all day long, but it's blocking them from completing that sale. And so I found that recently, here's an example, that people keep asking me about ink and envelope colors. Like, what's shown here? They love my combinations. So they want the same color combination. And even though my drop-down menu, I have the variations of the color, and next to it, it shows as shown, they don't see the drop-downs yet. They're looking at the photo and go, I love it. Let me convo her to see what color it is. So I'm like, I have to understand how my customer thinks. They haven't touched the drop-down yet. They're looking at the photo and they love it. So I decided to redo all my photos. This is not the first time I've redone all my photos, to add the ink and envelope color to the bottom, like a little bar, And that, I'm telling you guys, it's been over a little bit over a month now, has stopped the messages. Again, I don't mind the messages, but I want to complete purchases, Yeah. Sometimes it does even require me, the mastermind, to redo things based on how the customers behave with my listings. And photos is just an example.
That's a really good example to use too. I mean, anytime you can identify those common questions and answer them for people ahead of time, whether it's photos or description or whatever, that's fantastic.
And that may mean, everybody listening, I have 400 products. Did I redo 400 product photos? Almost, because some don't need it. Some are different. But yeah. And so a lot of times when my assistant's finished printing, her orders, she works on things to improve our business, redoing photos, redoing listings, Pinterest strategy, like things like that. And so that may mean, people listening out there, that if you redone photos recently because they were just shitty, and now you have to redo photos because, they're not clear enough on your ink and envelope colors or whatever. That's part of what I do, not all the time, but this is constantly what I do. I improve photos, I improve listing variations on platforms, I improve. And it's not about fixing what's not broken. It's truly fixing what's broken, I find, over time, if the customer keeps messaging. And I give you another example, on Amazon, but it's the same thing. I find that questions keep coming. I'm like, I can improve that conversion rate for that listing or listings if I continue to work on, these photos. Or again, this is a point about photos, but variations or what have you, The next one, I have a few more, okay?
Yeah,
the next one is, if I may interrupt before I go to the next one. The things I'm mentioning are like, and we didn't talk about the program yet, the Mastermind strategy yet in detail, which we will, but these are the things I help people do within the group. So like, if they don't know how to fix their photos, if they don't know if their photos suck, the coaching, it's just that. It's a coaching group. So people could utilize it to, it's in a group setting, but people utilize it to know how to work on it. I lead them in the right direction, or what's wrong with your photos. Sometimes people actually don't know what's wrong with their photos, or, their conversion rate is not as high as it really should be. And so, I use the group, the mastermind strategy, this program, to help people know what to focus on based on their personalized situation. So I may request of them, some more information, such as photos or what have you, to understand what you need to improve your conversion rate. I teach them also how to check over time if what you've implemented has improved or what have you. So this strategy group, this coaching group, is really just that. It helps coach you through a lot of these, I wouldn't call them issues, but a lot of these strategies that you need to implement. So if you need to implement a strategy, how to do it more effectively. So the next strategy I implemented to get to me where I am today is working on long-term strategies that gave me a higher return this year. So this is very particular to me. I implemented Google SEO, Pinterest, and my email list a long time ago. Okay. And they are at this current moment bringing me big results. Okay. Now, when I first implemented it, it didn't. Okay, so these are long-term strategies that I knew to implement as soon as possible. Like at the moment I implemented them, Etsy was going good, Amazon was going good, but I knew that just because something's going good, it doesn't mean I'm supposed to stay still. I find a lot of people work on strategies only when times are tough. Okay, I'm the opposite. I work on strategies when everything's going great. I'm like, what's the next thing to work on? So I'm very proactive, even if that strategy takes a while to implement. And I find that long-term strategies, guys, when you give it time to snowball, bring in really great results. So Google SEO for me, Pinterest, email list are now, for me, bringing in really great results. They're bringing great results last year, but now even better because it keeps snowballing, So, what got me to 500K, or I'm probably going to pass that, is these long-term strategies continuing to snowball. I understood that I needed to be patient, and I was, because I didn't implement it in a time where I was desperate. So I really recommend people to implement long-term strategy that doesn't give them, quick results as soon as possible, before you even know you have to. That's going to help you when you really need it. If I didn't implement these long-term strategies, guys, at this current moment, I know my website wouldn't be doing great things. And I know that, I'm saying, like, these things wouldn't be happening for me. Would I have gotten to 500K? Probably not, because the amount that it brings me would be significant enough that I probably wouldn't get there, So again, long term. And of course, hopefully you guys are around, X amount of years from now, and I come back on and I tell you I reached 1 million, and all these strategies are gonna.
Yeah, they all contribute. They all add up for sure.
So for example, like I said, the tip for everybody is work on strategies that don't feel like you need to at the moment, but eventually you're going to have to, but they're long term. So by the time you need them, you can't implement them at that moment. It just, it can take some time. So the next thing is, and this is related mostly to my website. Again, I'm very proud of what it has accomplished. A lot of people, start a website, they don't quite know how come it's not working, how come they can't drive traffic to it, and it always made sense to me. I always understood it. And so I continuously worked on and focused on my email list. Now, this is not for everyone, because again, it's all about prioritizing. So what is the strategy that's right for what's the strategy right for your business? Email lists will work for a lot of people, but depending on your market, I might tell you, hey, Pinterest is a better thing to start first on, or yada, 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 So, but for me, it was email lists. I continuously focused on my emails because I knew my repeat customer base was really high. It's just my market. They responded well to emails. And so I knew that the money is in that list. And so I continuously grow it, work on growing it. I'm not cheap in terms of rewarding my people who stay on my email list, right? I treat them like they're my newborn baby. Like, I take care of them. And so they get the best of everything, because I want them to stay on my list. And when something happens, like I'm about to get an email, I have email scheduled every month, but I make sure that I keep them engaged and keep rewarding them. And so they will always continuously open my emails. And when the email list keeps growing and growing, It's all about conversion rates. If my conversion rate for my email list is 20% or 10% or whatever, then a larger list will give you much more money. And so I'm always working on making sure that I optimize my opt-in graphic to get people to join, because one day that list is going to be 20,000, 30,000 people, and I could send one email and I could make my month just chilling, right? And so I worked on consistently growing that list. And so for people listening, if it's your email list you find that could give you really great results depending on your market, continuously work on growing it, focus on it. If it's Pinterest, that's really a good fit for your market at the moment. How do you continue optimizing that? Again, work on high value stuff. Don't work on stuff that doesn't matter, et cetera, and so forth. So for me, it was, besides SEO, email is a huge traffic driver for me.
Makes sense. Email is a big one.
So I have just a couple more, and that's it, and we'll talk more about the Mastermind Strategy Group. So listen, you want to know how I got to 500K? There's a lot going on here, So of course I have a lot of things to break down.
So it's not like a 500K in 30 minutes kind of deal.
No. Guys,
Okay.
The years, again, I never expected to do this much. It just naturally happened. But the years, I've been in business for how long now? It was literally like December 31st, 2010. I don't know why I was at home that night and opened an Etsy shop, but I was. So it's been 8 years or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, the next thing is ad campaigns, promoted listings. Spending money on ads. Now, the easiest thing for people to do, guys, is to get on their current third-party platforms and use the ad structure that they have. So Etsy has promoted listings. Amazon has ad campaigns, same nonsense, right? And so I knew that by paying essentially to get found was going to help not only my organic SEO strategy, because you have to have great SEO for it to work properly, but this will bring me even more results. Sometimes, when I launch a new product line, or, during the times when, your Marmalade tool tells me that there's an uptick in this type of product, right? All people more engaging with it. I up my promoted listing strategy. It's not a passive strategy, meaning I can't just set it and leave it the rest of the year. I keep an eye on it. I have, my phone here, it reminds me, it has an alert every month to check my promoted listings on my platforms. I sometimes check it more often, just depending on what's going on, if I have to adjust things based on what Marmalade tells me to, when things are more engaging and things like that. But promoted listings has bring me a substantial amount of money. Again, much more SEO organic traffic on its own, but I would, the revenue for ad campaigns and promoted listings is fantastic. And it feeds off of, it helps with the algorithm. So, if I keep promoting this item, and keeps getting purchased, eventually this item can probably be not promoted anymore and live on its own in search, because it's been, converting and sold many times. Mm-hmm. But for those people out there who, whether you need a boost to start or you're already in the game and you have not started any ad campaign strategy, if you have a little money to play with, start small. I spend quite a bit on ads, not really, because I put a cap that's really high, but they never spend that much, for me. For some people, some of my members, it does. It spends a lot, but they get a lot of return. But start small if you're really scared about spending that much. And if you're really scared, keep an eye on it daily, just to make sure that you're not going to end up being broke by the end of the day. Because some people don't have a lot of money to play with. I understand that. But start it. It could bring you some really great results. And again, keep an eye on it. If you have some money to spend, you could set an alert on your phone to check on it monthly. But don't be those people that let it go and then end up finding out that they're spending $50 to get 90. And there's some people that actually think that's a good strategy. No, I'm not going to even get into why it's not a good strategy. I'm hoping people know why that's not okay. But your spend should be, the sweet spot is 10%, preferably lower. If you get into 20%, you should really take a look and see what you could improve, or what you could turn off. But certainly ad campaigns have brought me in a decent, amount of money. And I've always knew something I want to get into. And test it out.
How'd you get into that?
I just knew, I just saw it. And I was like, oh, okay, I pay to get found. Things just make sense for me. And so I looked at it. I'm like, and I'm sure it makes sense for a lot of people. Okay, well, doing this will help me get to the top. And of course, when I first started promoted listings or ad campaigns on Amazon, it wasn't second nature. I always test, guys. I'm a testing, fiend. And so first starting it, I didn't know. I adjusted, I played, I understood. I'm a very analytical person, so I understood the results I was seeing and how to adjust to make it more effective, et cetera, et cetera. But just looking at it, it just made sense to me. Like, okay, you pay to get found. And of course, I have a good profit business, so I can afford to pay, right? If you can't afford to pay, look at your profit margins. That's another story we should talk about. But I just kept an eye on it. It just made sense to me, you know? I just said, okay, you pay to get found, you make money from it. It's a win-win, you know?
Yeah.
Right. They're a business too.
Yeah. So that's that. And the last thing I want to go over, there's probably a million more things, right? Little nooks and crannies to help me get there. You know, I have a very supportive husband. Like he's, you know, when he sees those dollar signs, he's like, yeah, I'll restock your supplies. I'll do this, you know? So there's a lot of things that's going on that obviously helps me. But the last official strategy I want to talk about, I mentioned early on in the beginning of this podcast, but it is really important, and I'm going to discuss it in detail right now, is working on high level stuff, right? And so, like I said, I don't bother with the things that anybody could do. And on my days that I feel really like down, let's say if I feel sick, or if I fought with, you know, my husband, or something crazy happened, fought with my family, if I don't feel like doing nothing, I'm like, screw it, I don't feel like doing nothing. I may work on restocking supplies just to get me moving, okay? That's the only time I work on low level stuff, okay? And so it's important for people to shift their mindset to understanding what are these high level stuff, what are these low level stuff. And so understanding who can work on the low level stuff. How, you know, again, I don't know what people's lifestyles are or whatever. Can you have your husband or wife do it? Can you have your, again, I don't know who you live with, your siblings, your kids, you know, once in a while I get my kids to put stickers on my packages, my branding stickers, you know. They're a mess when they do it, but at least they do it properly. They can't put it back in the box. It's like, God, I'm like, oh my God. You know, it keeps them busy when they want to help me. That's the only thing that I allow them to do. But it's constantly working on thinking about what I should be working on. Yeah, let me give you a really good example. When I first hired my first assistant, okay, she moved, so she's no longer with me. I have another assistant. But I was worried, like, should I be hiring somebody? And my husband said, okay, if you're going to give her this much a month, the time that she takes away from filling orders, at the time I was used to be filling orders, what are you going to be working on that's going to make you money? And I was like, okay. So I sat down and I wrote the things. Remember, I'm now paying somebody to do the stuff I used to do. So I better be working on stuff that makes me much more money, right? And that's how I thought of it. And so I wrote down things I could be working on that I knew was going to give me some return, because I knew the strategies I would implement to get it would make me some money. So creating new products, it's not just creating new products, but I knew how to implement SEO, get great photos, yada, 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 to make the money on it, right? Because it's not just, oh, let me make some new product. It was a strategy to follow up with it. And I had other things that I knew that I could implement. At the time, I was growing Handmade Mastermind to what it is now. So I knew that I could do, you know, more courses for my members and yada, yada to help me. And all these other things like implementing, I think at the time I didn't have my website yet. So launching my website, working on traffic plans. So I had to focus on high level stuff because I was now paying somebody to do my job, right? I don't want to pay somebody to do my job and I would work on nothing that actually made me more money. That would be stupid, right? And so, in my opinion, the return on investment was not there. And so I had to make sure I'm working on high level stuff. And that's how I see it, you know. And at this moment, most of the time, even my assistant works on high level stuff. Not all the time. And all the other stuff I get my husband to do. But again, he's more than happy to, you know. He understands business is business and he'll help, you know, if I need it. And high level stuff also could include customer service strategies. I do spend some time. I have a few vlogs on my YouTube channel that show people the time I spend with my assistant chatting about how do we improve our branding, because I do know it eventually leads to repeat customer traffic, my name out there. People do search for my name on Google, do search for my name on, you know, these platforms. And so I understand what's important, even though it doesn't seem important, branding and packaging, it is, you know. So I understand what's important. And there's another video where I talk about my inserts for my packages that get sent out. I strategically put certain inserts in certain packages. It's all well thought out to make sure that I'm getting a really great return, which is in this case, repeat customers, et cetera, and so forth. So yeah, that's the last thing. I work on high level stuff because high level stuff makes me more money. And that's what you have to do. If you keep working on things every month, every day, that doesn't make you more money. By the way, filling orders is really important because Customers are happy, they receive their products on time. Hopefully repeat customer traffic will make you more money, but somebody else could do that for you. And don't assume for a second that nobody could do your job. Nobody could fill orders for you. They can't do what I could do. If I could teach my husband how to, take the stationery design, change the color, change the name, fix the design, people could learn stuff. But if I could teach him, you guys can teach somebody to do your job. Training properly is important.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So like I said, these are the strategies that got me to where I am today over many years. Again, keeping myself motivated, and all that stuff, understanding that if somebody's able to do it, it's possible for me. And absolutely, why not? I mean, we're all smart, so we have to implement the right strategies, stick with it. Have the right support system.
I mean, that's fantastic, Dalia. You went through a bunch of cool points there as part of the overall strategy, and I think a lot of those are going to ring true and make sense with people. I know you also had a very special announcement that you wanted to make, too, about the group, and we kind of talked about it going through at the beginning and alluded to it as in some of your talking points and stuff like that. But tell us more about, what this is, what this group looks like.
So the Mastermind Strategy is a program, and it's a two-part program. The first part is the Mastering Your Goals course, and the second part is the Mastermind Strategy Facebook coaching group. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, it took me years to create this. That sounds kind of like marketing. No, it literally took me years to create this because, there's a lot of subscription groups out there, monthly subscription groups. I think they're great for some people, but I was always asked to do one, and a lot of things didn't sell well with me in terms of how I work. I just didn't think it would jive with me as far as my business model, as well as what I feel would benefit my members. And so I created this program that you first start out with the Mastering Your Goals course. And again, remember I told you to only work on high level stuff, only work on things that, are high priority, etc. So I start out with understanding what your goals are, what your strategies are that you should be working on based on you, right? Based on your market. Everybody's going to be different, slightly different, or have different priorities. So the Mastering Your Goals course helps with that. And essentially in the course, you'll have group check-ins where I literally personally approve your goals, right? You might have some questions, you're not sure. I approve them. I help you walk through them. And the last group check-in in there is to help you prioritize it. So you're like, Dalia, I got my goals. You prove them, but I'm unsure what to do first. I'm so overwhelmed. It's okay. I literally walk you through in the group what to do first, what to do second, and usually give you the why behind it, right? Because a lot of times you'll tell me in the group check-in what you sell, yada, yada, so I understand more of the context before I give you the advice. So that starts out with that. So now you have a personalized goal plan, personalized strategy plan for the year. Sometimes your strategies might take sooner than the year to finish, but nonetheless, it's usually a year plan. You don't have to map out your entire year, but just know that you're going to be working on these X amount of things for 2019. And so this is where the hugest value comes in, besides obviously knowing what strategy you have to work on, is the coaching group. The Mastermind Strategy coaching group it's a lifetime access. You don't pay monthly for it. I think subscription groups are great. This is different because I find that for me, I get busy once in a while throughout the year, not once in a while, a lot of times. And I find that paying for a monthly group may lead to people not feeling that they get the value that they, deserve by paying monthly when they're absent that month because the sales are increasing or whatever. So I just didn't like that. And on the contrary, for me, being the leader of this group, I didn't like people feeling that they have to get content from me every month. I am going to get very active in there, but this is a passion project for me, guys. And so when I'm passionate about something, I don't want to be like, here are the rules. They would literally see, because in my main group, I'm always there. I'm always doing Facebook Lives weekly. I'm always answering questions. So you can imagine this group's going to be taken to the next level, right?
Yeah.
And so knowing this is a passion project for me, there's no strict rules, will make me even enjoy it more. My members know me and they know that's who I am, And so in this group, here's where the magic really happens. You're in the group, you have your personalized strategy plan, and there's going to be weekly check-ins to make sure I understand what's on your list. It's like I'm kind of like an accountability thing. Like, hey, Dalia, I'm working on this, this, and that. And what may happen within that post is like, hey, Sally, that's great. Make sure you do this. Like, I'm making sure that you're focused on the right tasks and make sure that you're implementing them correctly. So there's going to be a lot of conversations happening in that weekly post. You may jump on that weekly post a day later, and that's fine, okay? But a lot of accountability and what's on people's plate. This helps people keep motivated. You're in a group of people who have the same focus as you, maybe not the exact same goals, but the same focus as you or similar goals. And we're all trying to get from point A to point B. And that's really motivating. And so this weekly check-ins will happen. You can definitely come in daily if you want and say, here's what I'm working on today. How do I make it more effective? I actually encourage it, because another thing is, that led me to my success, guys. It's not me just implementing SEO and Pinterest and email lists, right? We all could do that. I find that many people do, but they're not doing it right. I sometimes follow up with members who do email lists, and they're implementing, strategy to get more people on their email list, but it's not quite working out. And I look at their opt-in graphic, I'm like, who's it? You're not even highlighting the benefit here. What do they get in return? The 15% off, the 20%? Like, I help them adjust their strategies. And so they utilize the group to make sure that they're implementing each of the tasks to reach that goal more effectively. That's the key, effectively. And so they're utilizing the group as often as they need to get feedback from me and other members. There's a lot of members that have been with me for a while that know their stuff, and they could also help to make sure that they're implementing things effectively. Or on the contrary, use the group as well to say, hey, I implemented the strategy. They didn't quite work out. It's not working out as I wanted to. How do I make it more effective? And so again, I come in and I help. It's literally a coaching group. It's like getting a one-on-one coaching with me, but in a group setting. And it's lifetime access. And so a lot of times there'll be really great posts that deserve a Facebook Live within the group, a coaching Facebook Live. And so I already have Facebook Lives lined up that will be happening that relate to product line development, like we mentioned earlier, that relate to conversion rates, that will really help people with these strategies. I'm so excited about it, because a lot of these foundational items, people, again, try to work on it, but they're not quite getting it right. And I find that even with some of my trainings, or even with a one-on-one coaching, after the one-on-one coaching is done, that's it, they disappear. But I want to make sure I continue to help them. And one-on-one coaching can be very pricey if you want to keep using me throughout the year. And so this is a much more valuable solution to this. And granted, giving lifetime coaching is quite the value for the price it's being offered at. But this is my passion project. I do this anyway. I love helping people. And I want to make sure that I can help people get from A to B. And I continue to keep these people under my wing, so to speak, and help them get to where they want to get to. And again, they might hear some things they don't want to hear, like, hey, if you want to get to this, but fast, because you have to make money by XYZ date, get into wholesale, and this is how you do it. Or you're not familiar, you're not comfortable with email lists or whatever, but you have to get comfortable because these are your options. And you don't want to do the other two options. Sometimes you might hear things that you don't want to hear, but this is what you're buying into. This is my mastermind strategy. It's why I call the mastermind strategy, because I'm going to help lead you to the direction you need to head in to make as much as you want to make. Another cool thing about the course, by the way, is that after you get your strategies lined up and you know what works for you, what priorities are, in the course, I have literally all the major goals that people in a handmade community could actually have, and they're all broken down to tasks. So for example, Gordon, you're like, oh, I want to, one of my goals you told me I have to work on is building a website, right? Or redoing SEO, whatever. In this course, I have it's a Trello account you get access to. You click on the link and it goes to your own Trello account. You'll have a board full of all these lists, and the list is, launching a website. And I have it broken down for you exactly what you need to do, okay? Each task you need to do in order to complete that goal.
Gotcha.
Okay? So it's literally broken down for people. So all my members are excited about that because they get overwhelmed. They're like, okay, I have to launch a website. Dad told me to,
Right.
but how do I start?
Yeah.
What do I, it can be really overwhelming. So I literally broken it down for you in the order you have to do every single goal. And these are tasks you have to do. And within each task, some of them are even broken down further, which is really helpful. But you can utilize the group to say, hey, I'm trying to work on this. How do I make this more effective or what have you? So that's really exciting. So anyway, that's it. I mean, the mastermind strategy is this coaching program that starts with understanding what your goals are and strategies are. And of course, I help you prioritize them, etc. And the journey continues in the group to help you make sure you're staying on task, make sure you're implementing things effectively, making sure that you adjust strategies when necessary, etc. and so forth.
That's really awesome. And it sounds like people would get a lot of personalized help too, which is cool because, a lot of times when somebody says something works for them, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for the next shop. Yep. So you kind of do need to consider your personal situation. If you think that somebody's coming in and, they're getting the personal attention, they're getting the plan that they need ahead of them, and they're willing to put in the work. Do you think this is something that it can help any seller out there, or is it going to work better for handmade sellers or vintage, or certain niches are going to get more out of it than others? Or is this literally something that you think anybody can go through and get success with?
It could be handmade and vintage, suppliers as well. I think that's not the issue. It's the issue of anybody can join it. It's about online. There are some in like wholesale type of situations, trainings in there, but as long as you put in the work and accept that if you're like, I want to make this much, right? Because you're not joining the group because you want to make as much as you are currently making. You want to grow. If you want to make this much and your personalized goal plan is X, Y, Z, but you want to put in the work to get it done, or, if I tell you that you have to start, you have all these plans and one of them is to go wholesale, and you're like, I don't really want to, go approach shop owners, or sometimes people stop themselves. That's going to be a problem, because this is part of your goal plan. If you want to get to X, Y, Z, I may give you alternatives and say, okay, if you definitely don't want to do wholesale, the way to go is this way, because it depends on your market and stuff. As long as they're willing to accept that and do the work it takes to get there, and of course, be patient. I mean, a lot of these strategies, can take some time.
Sure.
Then they could absolutely see the success. Now, the key here is utilizing the group as you're implementing these strategies, right? Because you're like, okay, Dalia told me to do email lists, right? Because it's perfect for my market, yada, yada. I'm implementing, I know I have to be patient because it takes some time, but you have to continue utilizing the group to make sure you're implementing effectively, because sometimes people might come and say, hey, great stuff. I implemented, an email list strategy, and I've gained, only 10 subscribers this month. Well, I help you and say, okay, how many people are actually looking at your shop, seeing this opt-in graphic? I do some calculations and help you understand, you know what? 10 people a month is not enough. So let's work on X, Y, Z, and we go through it to make sure that you're gaining more subscribers. So I want people to utilize the group to follow up and see how they're doing with their strategies, because what you don't want to do is come, a year later and say, I don't have enough people. I'm like, okay, why didn't you follow up throughout the year to make sure I could help you adjust? Because here, listen, guys, we're all different. And so people might understand something differently. So while you may implement a strategy, you're doing it maybe more effective than the next member is, So utilizing the group to make sure you're implementing it effectively is also going to be key here. And the reality is, then anybody could really join and actually do it, And I might even be honest and say, you know what, you want to get to this, because you only are working part-time, which is fine, you might not get to this within this year. I really much walk them through it and explain to them why or whatever. And that's fine, but they have to accept that. Again, I can't make $1 million. I probably can't make $1 million by the end of 2019. Okay. And if I did, some major stuff has to happen, and I'm not willing to do that. Like a lot of my life has to change, like the amount of hours I'm not willing to do that. And I have to accept that. And if people are not willing to do certain things, they have to accept that it might take longer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
But I'll lead people in the right direction. That's for certain.
So given that the sellers are going to be at like all kinds of different stages with their shops. Some will be just starting their shops. Some will be maybe successful shops that want to, ramp up even more. Maybe some were having success and then their shops recently tanked. How do you kind of balance that and meet everyone where they are and make sure that, they're each getting their own guidance? I
told you about the Facebook coachings, the Facebook Live coachings. So there will be some standard coachings that will apply to everybody. And I find that with my experience, there's things that people always need to know. How to improve their conversion rate. Teach them, give them the tools, not just always give them the answers, give them the tools to understand, hey, the basics. How do you know what your conversion rate is, and how to identify which listings are the problem children, how to, all these basics. So all these are some foundational items that will apply to everybody. And then work on personalizing the experience for everybody. For this conversion rate, for example, is simply telling everybody, Sally, John, whoever's in the group is saying, okay, I gave you this Facebook Live training, but of course you can have some follow-up questions afterwards. You can literally post a screenshot in the group. I don't recommend links because driving, traffic to your shop and it might ruin your conversion rate. Speaking of conversion rate, so just posting a screenshot and I literally give you feedback, and it would simply be you posting, and I would comment below, and you might have a conversation with me. And I want to follow up with that and say, somebody in my group asked me, well, is this going to be a lot for you? Like, there's a lot going on. I'm like, first of all, in the beginning of the year, there will be a lot. Everybody's getting their goal plan together, etc. And I'm fine with that. Like I told you, it's my passion project. I really enjoy doing what I do because in the Handmade Mastermind, the free group that I have, I do a lot of that anyway, and nobody's paying me there, right? So could you imagine, so it's my passion. And so this is a new group, obviously. So a lot of things I'll have to figure out as I go, but a lot of things I already have planned, that these trainings will happen in Facebook Lives, and then follow-ups and, personal, feedback. So if you have feedback on something that you need, you post in the group, I help you. I will check in a couple times a day and do Facebook Lives as necessary. Usually in the beginning of the year, probably there'll be many more. A lot of these Facebook Lives that are coachings will be transcribed into Cliff Notes. So if people need to refer back to strategies and how to implement it, they can without having to watch the whole Facebook Live. Or if they're like, yeah, these Cliff Notes are awesome, let me watch the whole Facebook Live, they can. They'll also be categorized, in the groups. They have units now. It's a new feature. And so you could go to the unit for conversions, or the unit for product line development, or unit for yada, yada, yada. And so I might answer Gordon's question and say, hey, yada, 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 but go check out this unit and I'll link to it because it'll give you much more details, conversion. So over time, trainings will be built up within the group that I could answer your question and refer to you, that training,
Gotcha. And so when people join, is there like a set process that they go through? Like first they schedule like a coaching meeting with you, and then they go through their courses, then they start setting up their Trello board templates and stuff, or is it kind of all available to them all at once when they first join?
It's available to all at once, but it's like it's very clear when you sign up for the program, like on my sales page, that part 1 is the Mastering Your Goals course, and part 2 is pretty much utilizing the Facebook group. However, in the course, it walks you through things you have to do. Obviously, it's in order, and then there are several group check-ins, and you'll see that. Like section says, group check-in. This is what you do, and it's a video that shows you what to do in the group check-in, and those are that personal things that you need, like, hey, confirm with me that I'm not missing. There's 3 group check-ins. One of them is to make sure you're not missing any foundational items that should be on your goal list. The second one is to make sure that your goal plan is actually right for you. And the third one is to prioritize your goal plan, your strategy plan. And it literally tells you exactly what to do in order to check in with me. And then after that course is done and you've done, your plan for the year, utilizing the group is where it's at, and there's no particular structure in there except, when you need help, post, and when there are Facebook Lives, join it so you could engage in the conversation and get help regarding conversion rates or product line or, whatever. And these trainings are broken up. So it's not just, hey, how to build a successful product line. They're literally broken up into specific trainings. So there'll be a series of product line trainings, for example, or conversion rate trainings. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So where do people go to learn more about this?
So they go to thehandmademastermind.com/the mastermind strategy. Okay. And that's a sales page. And you'll see that it's $349 during the launch week. And that will end on November 2nd, and the price will go up after that.
Okay.
I do want to mention something for people that are listening, the Marmalade crew. You could use the coupon code Marmalade to get $30 off. That will expire on November 2nd at midnight. Okay, so
awesome.
If you're listening to this on October 29th, you have a whole week, right, to use it. So yeah, you go to that web address and you sign up there. The second you sign up, if you currently have any of my other courses, you already have an account on my course platform. But if not, I'll ask you to sign up really quick and you get instant access. Now, the $30 off is only for the payment in full. It doesn't allow me to do it for the payment plan, but there is a payment plan, 6-month payment plan, if you choose to pick that.
Gotcha.
Or you can pay in full and save $30, which with the coupon code, which is cool. But like I said, after November 2nd, the price goes up. But then you're in for life. You're in for life, which I absolutely love. I don't want people to feel like when they join, they're working on things and they can't afford the monthly payments anymore, like,
right.
For the subscription group, that they have to leave. I personally, for people that are listening, some people are my members are listening because they obviously watch you guys. They know, I personally take a personal interest in a lot of my members' businesses. This is not expected in the group, but sometimes I do follow up just naturally. I'm thinking about a member. I'm like, oh, let me message them because I do take a personal interest. This is my passion, and I do message them and say, hey, what's going on? Like, how's business, blah, blah, or whatever, because of how passionate I am about helping these members. And I want them to stay in the group, and I want them to continue utilizing it. I want them to feel like, back in like high school or junior high school, when you, whatchamacallit, like when you're on like the softball team and you're hoping that your friend also was picked for that side of the team, like you want them to be in the same group as you. That's how I feel about this. I want this to be like this. It is exclusive community of people, and I want us to like have each other's backs, and I want to have everybody's backs and help them succeed. And I want people to continue to stay in there because I want to make sure that you continue to achieve the success that you want to achieve. Do you have any questions?
Not so much a question as much as a clarification. So one of the things you pointed out as far as your group being different is it's you. Like, you are the person. So it's kind of like what we talked about earlier on in the episode, whereas, you can have a strategy or you can have tips. And if you have the strategy, you really have to follow the strategy. You can't like piece and part things together. So I can see some clarity in having you as the one coach, and it's not this person told me that, what do you think about it, right? Like I see that a lot. It's Dalia's strategy.
Yeah, and if you want to come in, you're buying into me, and if you don't buy into me for some reason, then you don't have to join. But yeah, it's mine. It's mine, and I have a lot of experience with a lot of different markets and things. And here's the thing: when you get me, I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. That's, I think, understood. But what I'm really proud of, guys, I have to say this, I'm really proud of is that one of my biggest assets, I've had it since I used to work, in retail, since I was younger, and back in college, and I'm a problem solver. It's something in my blood. I know how to solve problems, and it could be not just business related, it could be personal related. I'm telling you, like, I know I sound, intense right now, but I am. I used to, college back in 11 years ago when I used to go to college. From my degree plan, is that what you call it? You have to take certain courses in order to graduate. Yeah. My prerequisite, or whatever it was called, the thing I needed to accomplish was up to pre-cal. But I love math so much. It's like a problem solving thing. And so I took Cal 1 and Cal 2 when I didn't need to. I'm not trying to show off. I'm just saying I love problem solving. And I took it first thing in the morning. My friends thought I was crazy. But and by the way, most people don't have the time to even take extra courses because they're just trying to meet their requirements to graduate on time. I actually graduated 6 months in advance because I was a nerd and I did all summer school, like, to get ahead. So that's why I was able to take 2 additional courses, because I was way ahead of this, way ahead. But I love problem solving. And if I have a problem with anything in my business, which I come up with challenges every day, like, how can I make this more effective? Blah, blah, blah. This person out there in the world is doing it more effectively. I know I can because it's possible. How do I do this? I work on ways to problem solve it. I'm really good at that. And so a lot of the strategies that I come up with today, as I am, has been because I took into strategies and learned how to make them much more effective. And so if something comes up where it's not quite working out, which I guess that happens often, I'm like, okay, or working out as effective, I'm like, okay, this is what's going on. I'm not going to go through my thought process right now, but I work on things to make it more effective. It's how to implement, it's how to test. I compare, and I realize, okay, A/B testing, this worked out better, yada, yada, And so when people come to me with issues, like I said, I don't know everything, but a lot of things I do, because I've been in the business for a while, I could learn how to figure it out, I will work hard for people in this group because they're like my friends, and they are. A lot of people message me on my kid's birthday, and like all my members, like we are like a very close community. And that's what I'm also bringing to the Mastermind Strategy group. I want to make sure I have these people's backs, and I do. And so I will figure out. I'm a great problem solver.
That's awesome.
Sorry, was I just showing off too much? It's something that if
you're showing off so much, Dalia.
No, but I just it's something that I know I have. And, it's helped me get to 500K. It's like, okay, how do I make this much more this year? How do I go from because there was a big jump at one point where I made 223,000 all the way to like 400,000. I made a big jump one year, which I was exhausted that year, by the way. And so, I understood, like, I wanted to make a big jump. That was gold on purpose. And I knew how to get there. I knew, and the cool thing about the Mastering Your Goals course, and there'll be follow-up coachings within the group, is that a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people are very interested in taking what they have to do and breaking down their goals per month as far as monetary goals. And so, for example, I want to go from 200,000 to 400,000, right? And I wanted to do that. So I knew based on certain things I wanted to implement, how much I could get from that. And I teach people how to do that. I literally teach them to them in the course. And of course, we follow up trainings because that could be a very intense type of training to understand. But it's I've always had training within my retail, management days where I understood how to forecast numbers based on what I'm implementing. And I teach people that exact same thing. So if you're going to implement XYZ, you can expect this much. And I teach them how they could, like, why is that? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Sure does.
Sorry, I'm a numbers nerd, but it works to my benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to know your strengths, and I think to take advantage of them the best you can too. So
yeah,
that's good. I mean, thanks for walking through all the stuff with us, sharing the strategies and sharing a little bit about your new program and group that you've built. It's like exciting stuff.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll have to have you back again soon. Maybe 6
episodes,
time, maybe
right?
60. I don't know what that means this time. Thank you so much for joining us. It's fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
For everyone else, we will catch you guys next time on Etsy Jam.